Number 7, fact about culture. Culture is dynamic. Culture is dynamic. You know, what does that mean? It means that culture responds and adapts to vital changes. A culture is not static. A culture is progressive. You know, I'm a pastor. Here's one thing I know. Even in church operations, I can tell you for free. I mean, you may argue it, but facts and data don't tell lies. There are church organizations that are expiring, diminishing, reducing in attraction, in growth, in relevance, not because the gospel is outmodel, but because the culture is outmodel. The approach, there are certain things about the gospel that can never change. The Bible calls them ancient landmarks. But there are approaches and systems and mindset that got to change. Otherwise, you will so pretend over the death burial of that organization, including a church. Do you know how many are folding up? Many. Because cultures are dynamic. Culture is dynamic. It must know how to respond and adapt to vital changes. Vital change. For instance, if you go from city to city, nation to nation, people to people, you've got to understand culture differs. Within the context of Nigeria, for instance, the culture differ. The culture differ. The culture of how people greet, for instance, the Yorubas, they like to prostrate, they like to genuflect, but my Eastern brothers don't do that because it's not cultural. So you can't transpose your Igbo culture to a Yoruba setting or transport your Yoruba culture to an Igbo setting. You can't do that. That was the same thing about the covering of hair in 1 Corinthians 11. You know, the Jews believe in, the issue of veiling. The Greeks didn't believe in it. And so Paul was answering and said, to the extent that your culture, promotes this, is fine. But don't forget that this is not a culture of God. Neither should you impose it on everybody. It's so clear. You know what he was saying? Understand how to be flexible and to adapt to necessary changes about culture. So long as it's not inimical to the moral or ethical or spiritual or important fundamentals. Systems must change. You've got to be flexible. You can't insist that it must be like that forever. Forget it. It's not going to work. Your inability to implement the change of culture will spell the doom of that organization, including religious organizations. And there are many examples. All right, number 8, finally, on facts about culture is it's our role to determine our culture. What it is culture's role to determine our outcomes. I guess this is most important of all the facts. This is fact number 8 of culture. It's our role to determine our culture. But our culture reserves the exclusive right to determine our outcomes. So make your choice. It's like saying, as you make your bed, so you lie on it. The morning tells the day. The child tells the man. Friends, design your culture. And from your culture, you can predict your outcome. It was in Genesis chapter 49. A man of God by the name of Jacob called his children. He wasn't seeing a vision. He wasn't cursing them. He was just analyzing to them by experience. He said to the first boy, Reuben, he said, because you're unstable as water, he said, you cannot excel. He wasn't cursing the boy. He was simply saying, your culture of instability will make sure you don't excel. Put another way, son, I need you to excel, but you've got to change your culture. What am I saying? Choose your culture. Your culture will choose your outcome. People don't come to you because you opened a shop. Just because you open a shop. They keep with you, talk to others about you, bring others to you. Not just because you are selling or you have a culture, but because your culture is excellent. Can I challenge you on this? Because I know as you understand and roll with this, something will break loose for you and around you. All right, let's get into this last aspect on how to build a culture that makes a difference. And there are about 11 to 12 steps here, and each of them are so profound on how to make a difference making culture. Are you ready for this?